am outside of City Hall right now on the 7th day of my hunger strike. I'm out here advocating for housing justice in the Portland area. I have three main concerns that I wish to have addressed by local elected officials. First, I am asking Dan Saltzman to withdraw the fines off of the co-owners of Right to Dream 2. That is the rest area down on Burnside and 4th. It is currently a commercially zoned lot which is being used to help house many homeless people who would otherwise be living on the streets, and it would cost the city money through our justice system, whether it be because of drug and alcohol abuse or the criminalization of camping and whatnot. And what's currently happening is the Bureau of Development Services is currently fining Right to Dream 2, and eventually they might just get evicted because they're paid over $4,000 of fines and they won't be able to pay them much longer, and the owner might just have to make them leave. And so I'm asking for Commissioner Dan Saltzman to reevaluate his strategy of dealing with Right to Dream 2 and help to make sure that homelessness, gets alleviated instead of getting worsened by, acts like this, which makes it, harder on the city itself. My second request is for City Council to propose a housing levy for the general election ballot. A levy is just like any other fundraising tool for schools or parks or libraries and whatnot, and basically goes to voters and asks them if they are willing to take a little bit more money on their home to help raise funds for specific projects, and this one would be specifically allocated for housing. Looking at it realistically, if we had $75 million extra in the Housing Bureau, we could fund 2 new affordable housing public building complexes. We could help provide more in terms of short-term rent assistance, and we could help keep shelters open for longer. And this wouldn't cost more than $60 per average homeowner every year. Currently, our Housing Bureau money is tied to urban renewal areas, and many of them are set to expire in the next decade or so. And so our funding for housing, whether it's for the homeless or the working poor, it's becoming more scarce and it's being threatened. And so I'm asking City Council to consider getting a housing levy put up, since they've been having dialogue about it for about a decade now. And I'm hoping that finally with a little bit more public pressure, we might be able to see those things actually achieved. Seattle's passed a housing levy since 1981. My third request is for County Sheriff Daniel Staton to issue a 1-year moratorium on foreclosure evictions in Multnomah County. In 2009, we gave trillions of dollars to Wall Street banks in order to try to alleviate the housing crisis that we're going through. And as you've seen, all that's really resulted is a lot of banking fraud, whether it comes in fraudulent loans or predatory lending. And so I'm asking for our local government to do what's best for the people and hold these banks accountable. And so with a 1-year moratorium on eviction of bank foreclosures, we'd be able to help people stay inside their homes for longer, get back on their feet, and take care of debts that they might owe.
So what power would the city have over what the banks do?
That one's for the sheriff.
Oh, all right.
So the sheriff of Multnomah County.
So the sheriff could just refuse to
enforce
the eviction.
Enforce the foreclosure evictions.
Oh, all right. Well, great. That's a good idea. So I see you got some other folks here. Are they supporters?
Yeah, they've been out here longer than me. They've been here for the camping ban. So there's been a protest that's been going on for about 2 or 3 months, asking for the camping ban to be lifted, because right now it's illegal to sleep anywhere, and so most people sleep on the curbside because of the sit and light ordinance that got repealed. It's offered very small amount of protection for people to sleep on the sidewalk, but I think a lot of people are trying to get covered spaces that are away from downtown to be safe. Ross Island Bridge, there's a lot of space down there, and there's nobody who jogs down there. There's not a lot of foot traffic, and so it's a great place, but you're not even allowed to sleep in areas that are separate from the rest of downtown like that. So
right.
People are hoping that there's some new negotiation that can happen when it comes to sleeping outside, since there is no other solution for homelessness at this point. So today you can actually sleep outside because of the Rose Festival. I know that the organizers of Wright to Dream 2, they're organizing a pitch a tent demonstration, and so a lot of homeless people and a lot of housing advocates are going to be outside today pitching their tents and showing that homelessness isn't something that you can hide when it's inconvenient, and you can't treat people like second-class citizens just because they don't have economic status. And we all have inherent value as living beings. I'm really hoping to see that you and the community might be inspired to increase the dialogue when it comes to housing advocacy and all the other issues that kind of get, run over. Education is a severe one, and we don't have enough people advocating for our basic essentials. And so I want to see both the city come out and show its, willingness to be a little bit more progressive, and I also want to see the general public take charge of their democracy. I'm glad that many people have come by to give me juice bottles and bring supplies for signs and whatnot, but I hope that more people come out here and join me, pass out flyers, and can help to educate and empower each other.
Have you entered into a dialogue with the city council, like at any of their meetings or anything about any of these issues?
Amanda Frisk has responded to her emails. Sam Adams came by yesterday, come say hi to me and check up. Other than that, I haven't gotten any responses yet from any of the other city council members.
So actually the community's responded more so than the authorities then?
Yeah. People have been really positive on Facebook and on Twitter, and so we definitely have a very strong online presence. We've gotten a few interviews from KBOO, Channel 8, and the Mercury, and so some of the media is out there talking about this. But other than that, there has seemed to be a little bit of an embargo when it comes to housing advocacy as usual. And so I'm hoping that as the days go longer, that the media cannot ignore this extreme issue and help talk about these problems that people probably don't know too much about.
Welcome to A Growing Concern. As you see, we have Cameron Whitten in the studio, the fellow that just gave that interview. I went down this morning and I got that interview a little bit before noon. And also went down and took another little interview, and we'll hear that clip in just a little bit. But I thought it would really be good if we could elaborate a little bit on what Cameron was talking about. So we're going to do that for a while. We'll play the other clip, and then we'll open up the phones. Hopefully folks will have some questions or comment about the importance, to me, I think, it's one of the most important issues facing any city. Later on, the fellow that was talking about how the city is concerned about the eyesore of the homeless people in the city, but there's no talk about the social sore of it, which the Occupy Portland, when they were in the parks, they brought that to the front, where they made room for people and they helped people. They had tents that provided services, everything from rumor control to medical, and they were providing, it seems to me, in their small city, better services than the city was with their billions of dollars of money. And so Cameron's going to talk a lot about what he thinks we should be doing. He enumerated three lists there of things that he thought, and we're going to get into that in just a lot more in depth in the moment. So welcome to the program, Cameron.
How's it going, Jim?
Oh, pretty good. I know you're not a stranger to TV since you just ran for mayor and you got, 1,500 votes, something like that?
1,700, yeah.
1,700? That's quite a bit. Were you able to get on the TV a lot and through Portland Community Media?
I did some stuff with Facelift and Oregon Voters Digest.
Oh,
so
all right.
Was able to talk to a few
all right,
people here.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was Bruce Bouchard, right?
Yeah,
Bruce. Yeah, he does good work as well. He's been here forever.
Yeah.
So you listed off three things that you thought were important. Now those to me, what I thought when I was videotaping you, interviewing you, those were something that you were wanting to just to get an anchor into the needs of the homeless community. And then is this an issue that you've been working on for some time?
Part of my work has been when it comes to housing advocacy. I definitely had a spread of things that I've been working on when it comes to the community. I've been involved in over a dozen organizations, such as Right Around Portland, Goose Hollow Family Shelter, Meals on Wheels, Food Not Bombs, things like that. And so it's a lot of been grassroots community organizing before, I started getting more active with my campaigning and with
events such as in Occupy Portland. So it's been a fraction of it, and it's been something that definitely is very important to me. When I first came to Portland, I was homeless. I had to live in a shelter as a youth when I was 18 for 2 months before I was able to get into a transitional housing situation. And so something I hold to myself very dearly, and I hope that community leaders will be able to step up and deal with in a more conscious and practical manner.
Do you feel that they're doing anything at all for that issue? It doesn't seem to me they do.
I think they're doing a lot, considering how much money we have going towards Section 8, considering that we just built the Bud Clark apartments, considering the fact that we have Dignity Village that exists. I don't know if it exists in any other city.
Right.
The city does do a lot for housing issues. They just preserve the safety net. They just move it out of its shadow budget into an area where it can't just be cut out. And so we have a lot of strong housing advocates here. We've had community leaders such as Gretchen Kafori and Bud Clark stand up in a recent campaign called Support the Portland Safety Net. Nick Fish and Amanda Fritz, they also were in it, and it worked. We have a lot of progress when it comes to dealing with the vulnerable citizens in our society. And I'm just here saying that we can continue to still do a little bit more, because we aren't perfect yet, and we can just strive to motivate ourselves to be better as best as we can.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I had the wrong impression. I didn't think that the city was really doing very much. And I know that they, in the face of strong opposition, they supported Dignity Village. Mm-hmm. I know they moved them from 1 or 2 places, and they finally ended up out where is it? Out towards the Columbia River.
Yes, by the airport.
Right, and that's where right near where they dump all the leaves every year or whatever. And so it's good to hear that they are doing that. But you enumerated 3 steps that you thought that they need to work on, and one is to liberate the right to dream.
2.
Right to dream 2. Now you might go into a little bit more about what that's about.
So Right to Dream 2, it started in October, about the same time, like right after Occupy Portland started in Chapman and Lonsdale Squares. Before it has 2 co-owners, and the space started out as an adult bookstore called Cindy's, and that had to be torn down because of the multiple violations over all kinds of like sanitary and building, stuff. But after it got raised, it was replaced with food carts, and so the co-owners allowed food cart vendors to sell their wares on the space, and the city found a problem with that. It was violating some health code, violating something, and so they had to remove those people. And the diplomacy between the co-owners and city council has been very bad, and the patience been thin. And so recently, it's mostly, I believe, to be a backlash against city council that they allowed Ibrahim Mubarak, who helped organize Dignity Village, to set up a rest area for the houseless here in the middle of Chinatown. And so it's been a balancing act for city councils, because they probably don't have as positive terms with the co-owners as they could. And now there is a huge amount of homeless people in between. And I believe that we really need to do the mature and responsible thing and take care of our vulnerable population, seeing that this isn't costing the city any money. The people who are living there have made nice with the neighbors. They've helped to beautify Chinatown, to sweep the streets, to patrol the area. And they've had absolutely no complaints whatsoever about their presence. And that really says something, because there's always this stigma, there's always this stereotype that we have about the homeless, that they pee everywhere and they're mentally ill and they just want your money to buy booze. And they completely forbid drugs and violence there, and they help to counsel each other, and they all have roles, so they are all very productive with their days. And it just shows this is probably the thing that needs to happen for us to deal with our housing crisis. And to see that the city, which is supposed to be a paragon of progressiveness in America, how they're completely contradicting their fundamental, essence to criminalize and attack Right to Dream 2 in this manner, it saddens me, and it saddens many people and housing advocates in the area. So that's why I decided to choose not to eat. They have a sign out there that one of the co-owners put up that says Dan Saltzman is effectively taking food out of the mouths of the homeless. That's because Right to Dream 2, instead of having money to take care of porta potties and order food, this money has to go towards these fines so they don't get evicted. And it's just a shame.
And so those fines are levied, and they're paying them, but can they come back in and fine them again?
Yes. So what's happening right now is the fines are recurring, and so every month that you have this zoning code violation, which is basically having homeless people living there, every 2 months it's going to double the amount that is being fined. And so probably at this point they're being fined $2,000 per month. The number's getting pretty high. So
So all the money that the Right to Dream folks are raising are going into these, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to the fines. It could be going to take care of what they're trying to do. Now, what's the relationship between Right to Dream 2 and Right to Survive?
So Right to Survive has been around since like 10 years. It's kind of the umbrella organization which helped start up Dignity Village. And so Right to Survive is also connected with Right to Dream 2 because they're under the same entire platform of procedure and whatnot. And so the people who helped organize Right to Dream, the Dignity Village, and they're part of Right to Survive, and they helped to create Right to Dream 2. So they're two different nonprofits, but they both have the same format and model, and the same people participating.
I didn't find the Right to Dream 2 on Google. I didn't have a whole lot of time to put this together, but I did find the Right to Survive.
Yeah.
And I think they had a button on top for the Right to Dream.
Yeah.
So we don't have a separate graphic for that, but it was righttosurvive.com or something like that. It was on the video there, and it'll also be on the second one coming up when we interview somebody here. There's a few different points I thought about, and I think it was the second of the three that you mentioned, the reasons why you're doing this hunger strike, and it was to entreat the sheriff not to serve these folks who are in foreclosure. Does that sheriff really have that ability, just to even though the banks say to foreclose in this house, the sheriff can refuse to serve that foreclosure?
It's happened in other cities across the nation where sheriffs just say, we can't keep foreclosing. It's a crisis, and what are we going to do once these people are out their homes? Then the county's got to be paying for helping them get back on their feet anyways, and the sheriff's just like, we have to take a break, and we have to be able to create some legislation that helps prevent foreclosures from happening. And so we have a horrible problem, which just got fixed in Oregon, where there was a dual track process where people could be modifying their loans so they could pay for their debt, and at the same time, the banks will be putting them through the foreclosure procedure. And a lot of people have been foreclosed on and evicted from their homes because of that reason. And it's completely unfair to the American people, considering the fact that we used our taxpayer money to bail them out. And so I believe that the sheriff of Multnomah County knows this information, and it could be in the best interest of the people in Multnomah County that we do see a year reprieve of foreclosures. That way we can make sure that legislation that even the Obama administration's proposed, such as the holding banks accountable for fraud, things like that, those need to happen, and we need a year for the American people to get back on their feet, get out of this economic recession, and then pay off the loans, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Not that I'm particularly fond of Obama, but if his opponent makes it, then none of this stuff will happen. So most of these things are not going to happen, probably coming from
Romney.
Yeah, Romney, but it wouldn't. It's not going to happen at all from the present administration until the campaign's over. Probably, it would seem to me, because he's pretty well locked into that until November. So people need to. It seems to me that I'm trying to figure out ways that people, the viewers out there, can to weigh in. Does it do any good to contact the sheriff and talk to them?
Please, it's about the dialogue. The sheriff represents who voices their opinion, and so right now they represent the people who might not be willing to challenge the banks. And so if you are a housing advocate, if you are being threatened right now by foreclosure, it's very important that you stand up and make yourself visible, because right now he's accountable to you. He's an elected official, and this is your government, and you have as much of a claim to it as anybody else, and make sure it's known. We can't continue to be silent anymore, because that's kind of how corporate interest has victory over us.
Yeah, in many different spheres, not just in this particular one. Yeah. Has there been a dialogue, or can you speak to a dialogue that has been going on between housing advocates and homeless advocates and the sheriff's office?
Oh, I know there's been plenty of groups. One I've been involved with that stems out of Occupy Portland. They've had a conversation with the sheriff about a moratorium on foreclosures. I'm not very positive that he's convinced yet. And I think it's going to take a lot more public pressure. And I'm really glad that I'm out here trying to create news about it, because we all need to be educated about the other options that we have. And that's what we have to do to move forward, that everybody knows what's up for stake and what they can do about it.
Mm-hmm. Which brings up the other point that I had written down earlier. People also need to contact the media, because as I don't know if it was I probably didn't use it in that piece there, that they only had Channel 8 out so far, and you've had various community media, which is always the case. The community covers itself, the corporations cover themselves,
yeah.
And the corporate media has not been covering you. And people need to stand up and speak their mind, not only to the sheriff but to the media as well. Is there any move, any campaign to try to do that, or you're just calling on people to make their wishes be known to the media?
Yeah, I'm calling on community support. That's all I can do right now. I'm losing brain power. I haven't eaten food in 7 days. I'm surprised I'm still talking. So please, any way you can help support, if you really believe in the cause, if you realize that we are in a crisis, whether it's about housing or anything else, please call up the media and tell them to stop talking about things that don't really matter and start talking about the issues that affect us all.
Yeah, like three freaking days running of the 60-year reign of a queen in another country that has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on over here.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe CNN mainly. MSNBC wasn't as bad, and they did it locally too as well. And that's just a total waste of time. I don't understand. I understand why they're doing it, but there are rules and regulations with the FCC, the Federal Communications, that the folks that they get 5-year licenses for these to have the bandwidth and the cable, and they belong to the airways belong to the people. And in order for them to make all that money off of it, they're supposed to provide a certain amount of public services, and they don't do it, and they still get those charters every 5 years, rubber stamped. And if folks would stand up and talk about it, say, yeah, you need to cover these issues rather than just glossing by them, I think a whole lot more would be done. And what it takes is a person like Cameron to stand up and make a stand about any particular issue, but in this case, homelessness. And I like the way that one sign put it: homeless for housing justice, homeless.
Hunger strike
for housing justice. That was very succinctly and well put. And a person stands up, but it's very seldom that a person can do that on their own. I mean, they flag an issue and they make a stand, and like is what you're trying to do, and the community needs to move in behind them and to join in. That's what happened with Occupy Portland, which started out across the country, at Occupy New York, and everybody, it struck a chord and everybody stood up. And Portland isn't the only one that has housing problems. What was that thing that you mentioned? I think it was you. It might have been the other fellow that you were wanting something to be done. And Seattle has been doing it since '81.
The housing levy.
Well, I have to go into more. What is that now?
So the second issue that I was raising was about a housing levy. Currently, I talked about earlier, the funding is expiring, and so we have a problem with making sure that we have a supplemented amount of revenue going towards housing services coming from the city. And so our city, Seattle, has had a housing levy that's been passed since 1981, and we've had levies passed for the parks and for library district and for the schools. We had one recently just on the primary ballot for the schools. One of them got passed, the other one didn't, and they were both big ticket ones, like $300 million each. So they're really big. One of them was just adding on to, so it wasn't as $3 million, it was mostly like $120 million. The other one was the fuel package. That one didn't pass. And so I'm just saying that if we just started off really small with maybe a $75 million package to go towards housing services, think about how much that would provide us dealing with this problem that we have right now. Considering the fact that we care so much about dealing with homelessness, and we have a 10-year plan. We are 7 years in, 3 years left before we fail our planned mission. we need some more revenue. And we are paying for this already, like I said, through criminalization of drug and alcohol and of camping and of police having to deal with mental health calls on the streets and whatnot. Like, this is happening 24/7. Everybody feels unsafe, and we're not going to fix it the way we're going about it. And so really looking at these new organizations that stemmed up, like Right to Dream 2 and Right to Survive, they've shown that there is a model that works. And if they had a little bit more support from our government, and we could do it in a way that, respects all zoning codes, whatnot, and the city maybe just built their own public space that's publicly owned for them, that seems like common sense to me and probably anybody else who hears this. And that's probably the option that we should start striving towards.
And that would be the levy, which would fund something like that.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me. I was you led right into what I was gonna talk about. I mean, the fact that this is costing people anyway.
Yeah.
And why not put that money up front rather than helter skelter over a period of a year or whatever, having to deal with the different issues, because I forget what exactly I've read or heard that what percentage of people in this country are just 1 or 2 paychecks from being homeless.
Too many, and
it's homelessness. It's not like it used to be. It's like what percentage. There was a sign what percentage of veterans are homeless, but I forget what percentage of people on the streets are working, and then another great percentage of it is folks, families, and children that are homeless. And if they're homeless, then I think 1 in 5 children in this country is poverty level and is going to bed hungry at least some of the time. And so there are all these issues in the richest country in the world. It's just insane, it seems to me. And I really commend you for doing what you're doing, and with this hunger strike, trying to bring this forward. It's not a total hunger strike. You're supplementing it with vitamins or something to keep from damaging yourself. How's that working out?
Well, my brain feels fine.
Your brain feels fine.
I've probably lost about 8 pounds already. My legs are feeling not as strong as they were when I first started, so I can definitely feel the effects. But so far, I'm sure that my organs are fine. I'm peeing regularly, and I've got energy. That's good.
That's good. Well, you're going to need energy because you've bitten off a lot to chew. Because even though, as you say, and I was wrong, you're saying that the city council has been going behind and taking care of some of these issues. A lot more needs to be done.
Yeah.
And what's that slogan? If the people lead, the leaders will follow. Something like that. Sometimes the people need to stand up and tell the government what direction to go. And those 3 points you enumerated were very, very well thought out, and I think that they were very important. One was the sheriff, and one was the levy. And the other was the rescinding the fines for Right to Dream. Right? Was those the 3? They all seem very simple. They're crippling the homeless community. It's a good point that you call them houseless, not homeless. Why was that distinction made?
It's something that many people who suffer from homelessness, they just feel like they have a home, they just don't have a house. And so it's just kind of just respecting their feeling about these titles and the words that get thrown around, and really trying to change people's perception of what houselessness is. Because when you say homeless, people really have an image already of what that means. And when you say the word differently, with a different intention, it gives you a new way to address the issue without having that stereotype in your perspective.
Yeah, because stereotypes, sometimes they operate on a subconscious level, and we don't realize that we're looking at something in such a way that is tagged by a certain word. And you change the word, you might change your association with it.
Exactly.
It seems to me. Well, we got another little clip. Forget the fellow's name. His last name was White. I just kind of grabbed it real quick as I was going by, and he's going to talk a little bit about what's going on here with all these folks setting up setting up tents and getting ready for the big Rose Parade tomorrow. And this is a few minutes long, and we'll come back and elaborate a little bit more on what he has to say, and then we can maybe open up the phones. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
What we plan on doing is occupying as much space as we can this year, starting at this position and working our way back down to our rest area on 4th and Burnside. And we've got people from Seattle, Occupy, Dignity Village, and all over coming and joining us.
Keylog.
And we're just basically going to make it one big old block party.
All right.
We don't plan on having no sleep tonight. We just plan on having fun.
And you'll be here tomorrow during the Rose Festival parade.
Basically, tomorrow, this bike and trailer will be all decorated up, and there'll be a clown riding it, and the clown will be yours truly. And I'll be riding all up and down the parade route advertising and trying to get donations for us. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. The city is mad because we have all these homeless people, or as we like to call them, houseless people, in one location right at the entryway of Chinatown, and they think we're an eyesore. So they're hitting us with all these rules and regulations and fines and this and that and the other. And every time they hit us with saying that something's not in the right ordinance, we turn around and correct it and make it to apply the ordinance. So since they can't get us that way, now they're fining us. And well, they're not actually fining us, they're fining the landowner. Well, okay, fine, they fine the landowner, but it's Right to Dream 2 and Right to Survive that's giving the landowner the money to pay the fine. And so basically they are fining us just in a roundabout way. And we've already paid one set of fines, and they think, oh, that's going to scare us out of there. The head guy for Chinatown, because of all the social hats he wears to deal with Chinatown, can't come out legally and say it, but he's all for us being there. All our neighbors like us being there. Union Gospel Mission likes us there. All the restaurants like us there. The clubs like us there.
Kind of a neighborhood watch.
Yeah, because that's what we do, is all day long, every day, 24/7, our security does what's called the perimeter check, which is basically we walk around the block to make sure nothing's going wrong. And we keep an eye on the other businesses to make sure nobody's messing with them. And they like that. We have our own security system and we police ourselves. The only time we call the police or the ambulance or the medics is for that, a medical emergency. Other than that, we don't call it. We don't allow drugs, we don't allow alcohol, no violence, no weapons, nothing of that. And if people can't abide by our rules, and simple rules and regulations, then we politely ask them not to stay. Because we're not gonna, there's too many people in there that are recovering from drugs, recovering from alcohol. They're in there because they're getting out of a violent situation. And so we just ask everybody to obey some simple rules and regulations. Be nice.
All right, be nice. It occurred to me while he was talking that we discussed a little bit that put some money up front rather than the costs of having the houseless, the homeless there. It costs money in the long run, but also from what he was saying that they are providing services for the community with the basically the neighborhood watch and taking care of what's going on in such a way that maybe the cops don't have to be called and the cops don't have to deal with this. And they dissuade people from using drugs and alcohol and maybe you smoke some pot, you're not going to be getting in trouble. But alcohol and the meth and a lot of the other drugs that are around downtown are going to cause problems. And it seems to me that this organization that is there near Chinatown is taking care of itself, but it's also taking care of a cell of people and businesses around that, and that is something that that I don't know that. I'm sure the community media is covering it, but I don't know. Did you see the coverage at Channel 8? Any idea what they said when they covered this?
I don't know about the TV news. I know the Oregonian, the Tribune, and Mercury, they've all been able to do multiple profiles on Right to Dream 2. But I don't watch the news. I'm not exactly sure what they talk about all day.
What they say.
Yeah,
it's hard to know the coverage if you don't watch it, because I don't read the Oregonian hardly ever, and the local news I'll catch it. But so much of it is the police and what's going on with the arrests and the different things that are going on when there's a whole lot more to a community than who's being arrested, and it's just too bad that happens that way. So. The impression I got from this fella was that the Right to Dream, they're always having financial difficulties, but there's a lot of things that an organization, a community organization, nonprofit needs, and they need support in a lot of ways. So I forget what all right, we got the phone number up there. The Right, you can just go to Google Right to Dream, Right to Survive, and get on their website, which has been up a few times anyway, and find out ways that you can support them. There's a lot of ways that they can use the support. They can use the support right now. I think 4th and Washington is the nucleus of the tents and everything that are putting up, I understand. Mm-hmm. But from what he was saying, they're going to try to string them out all the way back down to was it 6th and Burnside? Is that
4th and Burnside?
4th and Burnside. And the lady that just dropped you off said that there's a lot of them going on right now. They're filling up. So we've got the phone number up there if folks want to give us a call and ask some questions and some comments. To me, this like I said earlier, that we always talk about the eyesore, and we always hear about the eyesore, but what about the social sore? The fact that there's so many homeless people in this country, it distinguishes so much that this country is not doing. We're over there at war, but these veterans come home, and I forget what that sign said. What percentage of them are on the street homeless? There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for children to be on the streets. You think about what we call primitive societies. They don't have homeless. They don't have people begging. They don't have people that don't have a place in their society. And somehow, these so-called civilized societies do. Why is that? It just seems pretty strange to me. Now, you came here how long ago?
I came here October 8th, 2009.
You've been here a while. Where did you come from?
I came from the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Oh, for Virginia, the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
All right. So, what city were you from there?
I grew up for about 13 years in Sterling, Virginia. Then I lived in Manassas when I was going through middle school and high school.
All fairly small towns then.
Yeah.
Did they have a homeless problem there? A houseless problem?
No, suburbs. I don't think suburbs really deal with homelessness.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was growing up, I never saw people out with signs saying, please help.
Yep.
That is something that's probably in the last, the new millennium. And it doesn't brook well for society that has that many folks out there. And a lot of them will have saying U.S. Navy or, it's Marines. And, how is it that after all these years, they've existed in this society and now they don't have any. I'm sure they might have some income, but it's not enough to make ends meet, and they have to go begging on the street. Maybe they have a home. Some of them do, some of them don't, but you see a lot of them there that don't. So what do we got? We got about 20 minutes left here. Hopefully we'll get a call here. If not, you're probably getting kind of tired. You've been sitting here for a little while now, and I'm sure that even though you're still feeling pretty good, this is taking a heck of a strain on your body and your mind.
I think the biggest problem is not even not eating. It's been out there 24/7, out in the rain and the wind and the cold, having guards harass me, having to be around people who or might be drinking or have mental illness, whatnot. It's been an unsafe, unsanitary situation for me, and I'm really fortunate to know that this is just a temporary thing for me, and I'm just experiencing what it's like to be homeless on the streets 24/7. I can see how people have post-traumatic stress disorder and they have anxiety and all these other mental health issues stemming from living off the streets, and it really limits your ability to think about self-actualization. Mostly you worry about your basic needs, and it's frightening knowing how this problem is only getting worse for people and it's not getting better.
Mm-hmm. It sometimes strikes me where I'll be out doing something, and I'll think that I'm through doing what I'm doing. I can go home now. But how about folks that we'll save that for later maybe, because I think the blinking light, we have a phone call. First caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Tim. I've heard about what's happened to Cameron and the fines that have been imposed against him, and I wonder how somebody could provide some finances for him to pay those fines.
All right. So, public access, we really can't talk a whole lot about, asking for money or anything, but I did see that on any media that you have some issues. Yeah. And you also have a website, CameronWhitten.com, and also Facebook.com, Cameron.Whitten1.
Yeah.
So there's more than one of you?
Well, I'm on everything, and I do also have a donation link on my website, but I'm not asking for the funds, just saying that it's there.
but the folks can get a hold of you through that there, and I can't remember what that website said. I sped through it, and I saw that Indie Media had an article about it. I remember you went to court, and what was that thing about? Was it because of the hunger strike?
No. I've been arrested 4 times during my involvement with Occupy Portland. Most recently, I had a federal charge on January 20th. It was stemmed with Move On. They had a event called Occupy the Courts, and it was basically on the anniversary of the ruling over Citizens United. Just really upset with our judicial court.
I remember videotaping some of that. I never saw you
corporate greed go rampant in our political system.
And it's proved to be that way.
Yeah. And so I was standing on the steps of Pioneer Courthouse. I was not obstructing traffic. I was not in the way of anybody. I was not disrupting the peace. I was not being violent. I was completely protected by my constitutional right. And the officer who arrested me, he was from Alaska. They actually brought in officers from around the region, even from Alaska, flew him in down to Portland because they knew that this protest was going on. This officer from Alaska arrested me, and they say it's because I was blocking the closing of a gate. And it's pretty obvious that I wasn't...
Did they tell you to move?
Yes.
But you didn't move?
I refused to move. I was performing civil disobedience. And I have been charged with a misdemeanor, failure to comply by a lawful order of a federal officer for standing on a steps, not injuring any occupants, not damaging our prestigious historic building. I stood there to protest, respecting the patriotic descent of our country and where we've come from. And I've now been fined $235 and also given 40 hours of community service, even though I've never been charged with any crime whatsoever before. I'm 21 years old, college student, and I'm living out here by myself, and I am surviving off of college loans. And they fined me $235 and also gave me 40 hours of community service for standing on the steps of Pioneer Courthouse.
Mm-hmm. And so that was a while back that Occupy the Courts happened. I think I was down there videotaping it. Those are the steps that are facing Pioneer Courthouse Square, I think, right? Yeah, I remember there. I left after a while. I had to get somewhere, and it must have happened after I left, because there was a mob of people there. Yeah. And they were the cops. Well, I wouldn't say they were surly, but they didn't like us being there. Yeah. And as soon as the courthouse was to close, is when this all came down. Then was there any other arrests made?
No, they detained one other person. They released him without charges. There was a person who was sitting on the steps who they picked up and they took him away from the gate. I was the only person who was detained and both charged. I definitely felt targeted, as many other people who have demonstrated in the past couple months have felt targeted, and it's unfortunate knowing that there are still flaws with our justice system and how there's nothing we can really do for a reprieve. I'm definitely going to try to file an appeal, which is also going to cost me another $37 to do, and there's no chance that I'm even going to be able to win that case. They're refusing to give me a trial by jury, and it's just unfortunate knowing that I can't have fair advocacy for myself when it comes to this trial.
So why is it you can't get a trial? I mean, it's such a small, or it's not small to you, but it's such a low level of infraction that they don't allow.
The U.S. government decided not to recommend prison time for my charge, and so that made it so I was denied my right to have a public defender afforded to me, and I'm pretty sure that also includes getting a jury, and so I'm going to have to try to see if I can get some more legal representation. My current representative from the National Lawyers Guild, he was unable to help me cover this case. So I'm going to see what options I might have in the future to get a little bit more legal support.
All right. Well, I want to thank the caller for that question, because I didn't have that in my notes, but I realized that once he asked the question that was it wasn't housing advocacy that created the problem, but or the arrest, but it was still your activity standing up for the citizens' rights.
Yeah.
Against Citizens United, and you've been doing this hunger strike, and you're not in front of any media, but the right wing has been moving to take away union rights, as you probably know, in Wisconsin, and I think it was 10-1 or something like that. They had like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
What was that?
8-1.
8-1.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Scott Walker raised 66% of his funds out of the state of Wisconsin. It was pretty big.
And then he ended up trouncing the guy. I guess it's the guy that he beat last time.
Tom Barrett, yeah.
And I guess he tried. Maybe it had done better if they got somebody different than somebody he had already beat. But yeah, it was a surprise. I mean, it was much. He won much greater percentage than the polls were saying that they would. And it isn't just that he's going to be in office now and he's going to stay in office. It's kind of a referendum that the right wing and any side actually realizes that all you got to do is throw money at it. That's what Citizens United opened up the door for that. And the more money you throw, the more money the other side's going to bring up. And as much as they talk about the negative sides of both candidates, they talk probably at least as much about how much money they've raised.
Yeah.
That is the issue. It's an auction now. It's not an election. And the move to take the banks to task and to call attention to this Citizens United thing is probably one of the most important campaigns in the country. And are you still working with that one? Is Portland, Occupy Portland, still working with that one?
Yeah, Occupy Portland is covering a multitude of different issues, whether it's about political reform or social justice reform. So there's a section of them who are working on reforming our Constitution to help strip corporate personhood from the Constitution.
Yeah, move to amend.
Yeah.
There's we've had
that's not part of Occupy, but
right.
People who are part of Move to Amend are also working with the solutions team in Occupy Portland.
I know that there's at least three different major organizations that are moving against Citizens United, taking different tasks. Paul Cienfuegos is one of them. Move to Amend is another. And Rick Stagenborg, he was on the show a while back. He has his own way of going about it. And in some ways, it's unfortunate they can't all agree on doing it one way. But at the same time, maybe they can quicken the minds of somebody that may not be prone to go with one of the other methods, and they'll find more association with one of the other two, and hopefully this is going to work out, because we're really going to see in this presidential election that it is an auction, and I think now they're saying Romney's bringing in more money than the President Obama. I don't know. It's something that people need to, anything you want to jump on board. Homelessness is an important issue. Citizens United is an overarching issue, and I think that they're probably connected. You feel that those two might be connected in some way?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good way to connect them up myself, but I guess he gets down to the corporate dominance, and if the people who dominate the campaigns with their money, they're also dominating a lot of the rest of society as well in many different ways. You know, through the last century and a half, we had the cattle industry and the coal industry and the different energy industries. They pretty much have their way with us. I see we got another phone call. We're down to about 8 minutes. We'll get the next caller up. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I have a couple funny questions. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Welcome to the
Good.
program.
I think it's funny he was ordered to 40 hours of community service, because it sounds to me like he's fully engaged in community service already.
Good point.
And the court owes him a credit for however many years he's been doing this.
Yeah. Well, that would make too much sense.
It was
Yeah.
funny. What happened when she gave me 40 hours, she said, you have 60 days to do it. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm on my 6th day of a hunger strike. I won't be able to complete 60 days. She's like, oh, you'll be fine. I'll give you 90 days. I'm like, I won't be able to do 90 days. She's like, you're going to die if you're still hungry striking in 90 days. I'm like, I know, but I'm going to have to probably go to the hospital after I'm done. And that's not going to be enough time for me. And she said, fine, 120. That's all you're going to get to do your 40 hours.
Bargaining with the judge.
Yeah, she really didn't care. So,
But that's all you do. You've paid it since you've been out of court already.
yeah.
You should turn in the hours and tell her what you've been doing. I've been advocating for the homeless.
You might try that.
I've been working with Occupy Oregon. I've been protesting Citizens United with Occupy and Move On. You've been busy doing community service already. Now, I know it's not the same as passing out flowers to people somewhere, and you know that the government designates as deserving of flowers, but it's the most serious community service you can do. And thank you.
Oh.
And I guess that the police probably did know they were looking for you. That was my experience years ago when I was active with Andy Ward. They knew who the leaders were. They had photos. They've seen you all over town for I don't know how long.
Oh, yeah.
Expect them at your door again. This could become your secondary vocation, is battling the courts.
Yeah.
And in that regard, I would really encourage you, if you're not already, to become very familiar with Paul Cienfuegos' arguments on the law and the Constitution and our rights, because I was just stunned when I heard him on Jim's show.
Yeah.
He makes so much sense.
Yeah, a lot
And
of people.
I really do think we have
Local
to take
sovereignty,
a
state
giant
preemption,
leap
yeah.
forward, or they're never going to get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I should shut up and let you guys talk, but I was thinking of other ideas while you were talking about ways to fix housing, and thinking there ought to be a special city bond floated. You were talking about a bond that is only available to banks, and they don't purchase it with cash. They purchase it with homes they're sitting on that are in a depressed real estate market, that they give title to the city, and the city then puts homeless people into those homes and makes sure that they're connected to other resources in the community that they need. And it would be a way of doing this without anybody having to move any cash. You just move the properties. It also occurred to me that the local courts, which handle the foreclosures, could say to the banks, you know what, every time you put a family on the street, you increase our domestic relations caseload, our criminal caseload, our substance abuse caseload. You're jamming up our courts from both directions. And we're also facing budget cuts. So we have to prioritize. Foreclosures are going to the bottom of the docket, and they're staying there until people's life-threatening situations are dealt with, and then we'll get to you. And we don't, if we can't get a moratorium through the laws or through some other measure or begging somebody, we should be talking to the Multnomah County Court about that. I mean, I think that's a valid position for them to take in order to administer justice to the citizens of the county, to make those priority choices. I think, domestic violence case has to move up the docket ahead of a foreclosure. I'm sorry.
Hey, amen.
And since resources are tight, the banks can wait.
That's right.
Now I'll shut up and let you guys go.
All right.
What's your name?
But very good show, and thank you so much for all you've been doing. I hope Jim has you on again so we can keep track of you.
All right.
All right. Well, please check out his website.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was a voice from outside the box, if I ever heard one. I mean, she come up with ideas. These ideas should be being thrown out into the mix from the different folks there at City Council. You know, they're some of them. I would have never thought of. You know, I'm not much into economics and all that, but you know, they may or may not be viable, but they should at least be considered.
Yeah.
And a couple of them kind of went right by me there, but. She made some good points. So we're down to about 3 minutes. Anything you want to sum up here? Anything in particular?
Yeah, I really hope that we take this opportunity to be inspired and realize that in the now, this is the only chance that we have to make things different. We can't keep prolonging, can't keep biding our resources and time when we know that this crisis that we're going into is going to steer into unsatisfying direction if we are not there to provide our input. And so if you agree with the hunger strike that I'm participating in right now, I would ask that you would come down, bring a sign, show your support, print out flyers. You can find those on my website. You can find them on my Twitter, on my Facebook. Please talk about it on social media. Please tell your friends. Please educate and empower the community. We all need to know the tools that we have available, and we all need to be able to make the phone call to the right person to make sure that we are being listened to.
I think that was a lot of the power of Occupy movement, is a lot of people who aren't activists, you know, because most people aren't, you know, a lot of them realize, well, wait a minute, you know, what these people were saying makes sense, and I'm not alone. I feel that way too. And when you start realizing that you're not alone, and many other people from all different walks of life feel the same way that you do, or at least on some of the issues as you do, that's powerful. And I think, well, I think that a lot of people believe that the authorities' response to homelessness and poverty does not help, but it hurts, and I think in the long run. Despite the fact that you illuminated me that our city council is doing work that I didn't realize they were doing, and I commend them for it, but it doesn't mean that it stops there. They should continue.
Yeah.
And so, even though I asked you on the interview, we got about a minute left. You haven't said this is going to be 30 days, 60 days. This is ongoing.
Ongoing.
It depends on how you feel down the road.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to just stop with that. You'll find another way to bring this issue out.
Yeah.
What prompted you to do this particular one?
It's probably just going around to Right to Dream 2, visiting their site often, and one of the co-owners put up this big sign that said Dan Saltzman is effectively taking the food out of the mouths of the homeless. And I was just like, you know, that's really saying something. And this statement's not being heard by enough people. And so I decided to stand outside of City Hall and have them watch somebody wither away by the current policies that we have in place. And I know that a lot of people will not be able to stand to watch that for much longer. And compassion and human dignity and common sense is soon going to click in, and we're going to start working on things that we need to and put it on the agenda.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank the phone calls and I want to thank the crew.